Some passers-by were walking around downtown Houston, Texas, when they noticed something strange. A police officer was lying on the street with his horse facing the ground. People had no idea how heartbreaking her story was. It all started 6 years earlier at the Houston Police Department in the USA. Officer D Herrera John was one of the cops, as he was lucky not to have to go on patrol alone. Instead, he had a beautiful partner named Charlotte by his side, which was a horse. When John saw the horse for the first time, it was love at first sight. The policeman couldn't believe his luck at being able to patrol the streets on such a beautiful and majestic mare. The two were a well-rehearsed team and got through everything together. From wild bets, to greeting children who loved to pet the animal on the nose, everything was there. Charlotte began her job with the Houston Police Department when she was 2 years old, and although she was quite young when she started her job, Charlotte seemed to be a natural and passed all her exams with flying colors. She loved the role of the police horse and couldn't be happier, and so did John. A childhood dream had come true for him and he went to work every day with a big smile on his face. The duo of horse and policeman worked together for 4 years, but sometimes they were also up to mischief. Like the day they walked into their co-worker's office to say hello. Unfortunately, everything was to change a few years later. It was the 3rd of December 2015, and Officer John and his horse Charlotte had been put on their usual duties of patrolling the streets to make sure the public were okay and to help when needed. It started out like any normal patrol at first. The two strolled down the quiet streets and checked on things, but then the situation would change abruptly. When Charlotte and John were on a busy road, the then 6-year-old horse got a fright. She was usually very calm, but cars passing her at high speed still frightened her, and she started pacing nervously. Officer John tried to calm the horse and bring it back under control. Unfortunately, the horse was too scared to listen to him, and eventually, the police officer lost control of the animal. The horse threw him off the saddle and ran into traffic. In an incredibly unfortunate series of events, Charlotte ran into the path of an oncoming cement truck. The truck driver was unable to brake in time and collided with the frightened animal. Charlotte was on the ground within seconds, and John, who had witnessed the whole incident, quickly ran over to his horse to see if she was all right. Unfortunately, it had been injured. Despite the injuries John sustained himself from being thrown from his horse, he refused to leave his partner's side. He lay down next to her and cradled his head in his arms, meanwhile he whispered soft words to calm the horse. He then shouted to a passerby to call a vet immediately. His horse was breathing heavily and seemed unable to get up on its own, and this worried the officer greatly. When the vet arrived, he examined the horse's condition. Throughout the time that the vet was examining the animal, John stayed with Charlotte and comforted her as best he could. He kept stroking her head and fearing for her life, and unfortunately, the vet didn't have good news. It turned out that the impact severely injured Charlotte's hind leg, meaning that it was fractured and inoperable. The only way to extricate the horse from its tragic situation was to euthanize it on the spot. Heartbroken, John finally agreed that this was for the best. He hugged Charlotte tightly and held her in his arms the whole time until she fell asleep. Then the policeman couldn't hold back his tears. Even passers-by who had observed the whole event struggled with their feelings. In the days following the horse's death, the Houston Police Department made a post on Facebook saying it was with a heavy heart that they announced the death of Charlotte, an HPD horse. She has served the people of Houston for 4 years and will serve many of us. If this story touched you, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next one.